We are so lucky to have Dr. Maria Costantini Ferrando with us today. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Wonderful to be here. Thank you for having me.
This is a treat because you shared with me before recording that this is your first podcast.
Indeed.
And I'm so honored. Thank you.
Oh no, it's very exciting for me. It's a different way of talking to other people, so I love it.
Yeah, you reached out to me, and when we got to first connect and I got to learn more about you, I really could feel your passion for the work you do and the impact that you're making in reproductive medicine. And just to highlight you, you're a reproductive endocrinologist at RMA, Reproductive Medicine Associates of New Jersey, and also the regional director for RMA. So you have a pretty important role there.
Yes. Sometimes overwhelming, but most of the times exciting and full of opportunities.
Yeah, I'm just so grateful to you for reaching out because it's rare that I get you know, a doctor who wants to talk about the intersection of science and empathy. And that's kind of going to be our focus for today. And I'd love to have you share a little bit about your background. I know you're originally from Rome, Italy, and have an extensive background going to college in New York, going to getting your master's in Berkeley, starting out in clinical psychology. So you've had um, kind of a lot of pivot and twists in your journey that led you into reproductive medicine. So I'd love for you to just kind of share a little bit about your background, how you got to where you are.
Yeah, I do. I sort of have a little bit of a twist and turns in my journey. You're absolutely right. I started, I started in clinical psychology, um, went right out of college, first for a master's and then getting my PhD at Northwestern. And I was always interested in the medical piece. My dad was an OBGYN. My brother ended up going into medicine and cardiology, but sort of from a distance. When I ended up doing my internship, my 2-year internship at Mass General, I sort of navigated slowly and gravitated as little by little towards the consultation liaison piece of psychology and psychiatry, which is really working with medical patients. And then so there was always this interest, this sort of passion in the background, but it was never quite allowed acknowledgement. It was sort of more
Mm-hmm.
of a quiet passion that I had. Eventually, I ended up doing a fellowship at Sloan Kettering, where I work with an amazing mentor. And she's like, Maria, who are you kidding? You want to go into medicine? Just do it.
Okay.
So she was very inspirational to me. And eventually, it was there working with cancer patient. I was the consultation liaison individual for the breast cancer floor and really ended up, I think, as I mentioned to you, working with women, unfortunately, sometimes very young, who I was prepared to talk about death and dying, and that was what I was really very skilled at, and I had a lot of experience doing, and yet it all pivoted towards I will never be able to have a child, and it's the the difficulty of that conflict
Mm-hmm.
struck me because I really thought the biggest challenge, which of course to some degree it was the fact that there was imminent death around the corner. And that was clearly an issue, understandably so, but at the same time, the strong sense, the strong force of, oh my goodness, it's not just that I'm dying, I'm also not going to get to be a mother. And that incredible struggle, that pain, that sense of I really missing out at something that I thought was going to be a significant part of my life is what really
Mm-hmm.
got me in contact with, wow, this is something really major, and this is something I want to be part of. So in those days, fertility preservation was really not major. It was just starting off. We're talking about early 2000.
Mm-hmm.
So it late 90s, I guess, when I really
Yeah.
started medical school. So it was a revelation for me, and I got into the field. In fact, I decided to go to medical school to become an REI and to do fertility preservation, even though that's only part of what I do now, a very
Yeah.
small part of, but still, it really I felt I had something to give that
Yeah.
my background really allowed me to cherish and to develop.
Wow. Thank you for sharing a bit of your background. And yes,
Yeah.
just making that pivot into this calling, this real calling of I want to help individuals step into parenthood. And, you've shared with me like, and I've heard you talk in different talks, like you don't want to just help them get pregnant, but how do you get through it, right? How do you
Yes.
navigate through this? And
Yes.
what you bring is such compassion and caring, which is so needed in this field, you know?
It is. It's interesting when I went to medical school, even though it was a wonderful medical school, they were just beginning in those days to talk about ethical issues, to talk
Mm,
about, how do you take care of patients when they're in pain? How do you take care of patient when they're struggling? Everyone
mm,
wants to focus on how do I get them better, but it's very difficult to sit with discomfort. It's very difficult as a
mm,
doctor to sit with discomfort, to sit with uncertainty, to sit with powerlessness, right? Because we feel
mm-hmm,
like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to help you. And
mm-hmm.
sometimes in our eagerness to find a solution, we lose track of where the patient may be at. And I think we miss an opportunity for empathy.
Yeah. Let's dive into that with empathy. I know listening is such an important skill. You shared with me it's not a soft skill, it's really everything.
Right.
Truly listening, giving the patient space to share and open up. And I know you don't know this journey firsthand, going through fertility struggles. We'll talk about your personal path to motherhood a bit, and you have 4 children, but um, really this whole patient experience and integrating and intersecting science, empathy. I'd love to hear your
Yeah.
thoughts a little bit more on this.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, Lisa, that empathy is really described as a soft skill.
Mm-hmm.
But in fertility care, it is a clinical skill.
Mm-hmm.
The ability to listen, to truly listen to a patient's story can, reveal things that no test ever could. Empathy really allows us to read the emotional context behind every decision, how many cycle a patient can handle, how hope and fear really often coexist, and how loss is really essential in shaping trust, right? When empathy and science work together, then care becomes not only effective but healing, right? And
Mm-hmm.
um, empathy really in fertility medicine, but really in every aspect of medicine, it is not only about being kind, which people often think, oh, I'm a nice person, I'm kind, but it's not. It's not about just being kind. It's about being intentional. It's taking an extra moment to explain a lab result. It's anticipating how a patient will feel after a non-successful cycle, right? It's helping them see that the disappointment doesn't erase progress, which I think patients often are very, very easy to miss. And we know that one of the reasons why patients drop out, they drop out because they can't do it anymore. We used to think, oh, if they have insurance coverage, then they'll just stick with treatment. Absolutely not. We have plenty of studies that have shown, look, even with insurance, even with money, patients give up because they can't take the burden of the emotional stress that goes with it, right? It's about protecting staff as well, creating a culture where clinicians are supported enough to keep giving emotionally cycle after cycle. I mean, for doctors burnout, nursing burnout, these are real things.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard on patients, it's hard on staff. It is an incredibly stressful journey. You see it, as I mentioned to you before. You see it in cancer a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
People acknowledge it a lot more, and as this is no news, infertility has been considered to be as stressful, right, as a diagnosis of cancer. It's about losing a dream, a hope that gave meaning to your life, even though you're not actually losing or being having the threat of losing your life, right? And those are emotional basics, basic tenets of life that make who you are, give your identity. And it could
Mm-hmm.
be for a woman, but it could be for a man. And it's just something that unless we realize the power of that, we really missing the point. And that's where patients often will feel not heard, even if you get them pregnant. We don't want to be the doctors who get people pregnant despite the experience they go through, right? Despite what we can offer, we want to get them pregnant, and we want them to say, go there, go and see that doctor, go and see that practice, because they don't just get you pregnant. They help you through it, as opposed to, they're horrible, but you know what? They'll get you pregnant. That is a lot of what's, at least in the past. Hopefully, we've gotten better at that. But certainly in the past has been common knowledge. And sometimes
Yeah.
you see it across medicine. Oh, great surgeon, horrible manners, but he'll at least he'll get that gallbladder out. Do
Yeah.
a good job.
Oh,
We
I'm
want
so
to do better than
grateful.
that.
Yeah, this conversation's so good because it is this human connection side. Patients want to feel like, do you really see me? Do you really hear me? You
Yes.
know,
Yes.
we've gotten lost sometimes through the medical process through IVF. It's, often you feel like you're just kind of going through the mill, if you will, like, okay, it's this test, that test, next patient, right? But like,
Yeah.
thank you for sharing your approach and how important. I mean, this is what it is. It requires real compassion, real interest in each individual patient.
Right. It requires humanity, right?
Exactly.
It's an understanding that every individual is a different human being. Every
Mm-hmm.
patient brings a story of hope, fear, grief, resilience. All these things are unique to each and every one of us. And the other thing that's incredibly powerful about infertility is that these kind of struggles often feel isolating, even invisible, right? There's often shame, guilt, pressure, especially when people say, "Oh, just relax. It'll happen when you stop
Mm-hmm.
trying. It'll happen to me after that." And everybody has to give their own story and tell you what it is that you need to do. But at the end of the day, you're alone. And one thing I can say, thank God for the oncology field, is people support you. No one feels ashamed to say, I got diagnosed with this type of cancer. In fact,
Mm-hmm.
they know people will sympathize, and know people will empathize, and know people will understand and want to offer support. But when it comes to infertility, it's a whole different story, because then you feel that you are less of, because you're missing something. You're not quite as perfect as the woman who was able to get pregnant right away. And so, uh, without an appreciation of that, um, you may not see how difficult it is for patients who are struggling, right? And as a
Yeah.
psychologist, I see how fertility touches identity, it touches relationship, it
Yeah.
touches self-worth. That's why emotional support isn't really optional for us. It's really essential.
Yeah.
We can't miss that. If we want to be, back to your point, Lisa, if we want the patient heard, right? We we
Mm-hmm.
we really we integrate basic psychological principles in everything we
Yeah.
do, through validations. Look, your feelings are real. You're right. You're not overreacting. You've been trying for this amount of time, and you're right. You should be pregnant. You're not crazy. You're not so neurotic. This is ridiculous. You don't need to be here, kind of thing. Or the other thing is agency, right? You're not just a patient. You're a partner in this journey,
Mm-hmm.
with or without somebody else,
Yeah.
but you're along with your doctor. We're not, we don't want to be too paternalistic, right? We want to create a sense of safety, yes, and guidance, absolutely. But we also want to realize and accept the fact, look, this patient is an adult individual who is really wanting to partner with you on this journey. And then
Mm-hmm.
there's also the important piece is the narrative. We want to reframe the story. When
Yeah.
the patient comes to you and feels broken, you want to try and reframe this in a look, this is an opportunity for being brave. This is an opportunity for doing
Mm-hmm.
something that you haven't done before, and we can do this together. Like a lot of what patients will thank me. If when I call, if something goes wrong, you're not pregnant, or we didn't get the embryos that we wanted, and my comment to them is like, you don't have to thank me for this. Like, look, we're in the trenches together. I'm fighting with you, right along with you, and I want this almost as much as you want it, right? I always acknowledge it's not quite as you do, but almost as much as
Yeah.
do because I'm so invested, right? And the idea of being in the trenches together, I think really
Mm.
kind of gives a sense. We're fighting a battle here. There's no pretending. It's something else
I
because
love so much that you speak about the narrative. That's something I work on a lot with my clients and rewriting a new narrative.
yeah,
And that you're doing that. You're reframing the story, and you, and as well as the work I do, we have such important roles in giving people hope.
yeah,
Having the space to help them, I like to say it, living in possibility, living in what's
mm,
possible, right? There's
right,
enough of the doom and gloom. And so you being this compassionate, caring, reproductive endocrinologist who comes, you've shared with me you're a spiritual person, and um, highlighting the importance of an openness, a reframe, a um, how do you want to say it? I don't know. I just think like what you bring is so important, is from a reproductive endocrinologist perspective and
yeah,
person working in this field, and having the lens of a clinical psychologist. I was thinking as you were chatting, how our backgrounds can really inform the, like, help us in the work we do. Me coming from an occupational therapy lens, really
right.
understanding the importance of a holistic piece. So everything you're sharing is so key, and just, recognizing what a vulnerable time in people's lives are that they're going through this.
Yeah, absolutely. And also having the being humble enough to know that it's very difficult to just do it by yourself, right?
Yeah.
Like we have amazing social workers, we have resources and people like you, that that
Yeah.
that sit, with a client and help them through it.
Yeah.
Is those are resources that to me are invaluable because
Yeah.
as a physician, even having the most amazing nurses and the most amazing nurse practitioners to work with, all these individuals are key, but you need help in also your mental
Yeah.
energy. You need help with how do I get myself through it, and reframing, and the work that you do is so important. We have, I always think medicine is a science, but healing is an art, right? And
Mm-hmm.
part of that art is working different people bringing their gifts separately, but together, right? And working together towards like one big canvas that
Right.
comes together beautifully as a whole, right? And that's
Yeah.
all, that's what it's about. It's about making the patient feeling not like broken, but as a whole, with all the support and family and friends obviously
Yeah.
contribute to that as well. But having and I wish I had the time to do things of this nature, but I always talk to patients about, look, get the whatever support you can get, create your rituals, your reflection. I mean, there was a patient who was telling me that she lights a candle before every embryo transfers and
Mm-hmm.
journals. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Whatever helps you to go in with positive energy is to me what's important to do. And everyone has their own way of manifesting that.
Yeah.
Um, And also, honoring transition to start of a cycle, the end of one, the decision to pause, the decision to pivot. These are all important moments, and that require a lot of energy on our patients. And acknowledging that. Sometimes when I call patients, after a failed transfer, for example, I may wait a day and I say, look, I'm just calling you because I'm thinking about you. We're not going to talk about what we're doing next. Sometimes they want to, and it's like just allow yourself to feel the grief of what you're going through, right? You don't want to skip those steps. It'll prepare you better for what we want to do next. And I promise you, the minute you're ready, we'll talk about what to do next. Those pauses are important because otherwise that's how you get to burnout, right? And burnout
Yeah.
means I'm going to give up. And
Right.
that's not good for anyone because then not only did we lose a patient, but that patient lost the opportunity and the chance. Like you said, possibilities, right? You don't want to, and I always talk about, sometimes it may be different than you thought. Maybe you pictured it in a certain way when you were thinking about this, and now it's presenting in a very different way. But I do believe that everybody has their journey to go through, and we all have our challenges. It could be in this, but it could be in something else. It's just we have to grow, and that's sort of what life is about when you get these curveballs and you have to find ways to adapt and figure out how to get past it. That is a challenge that everyone has. And sometimes I share my own stories or my own struggles with patients in an appropriate way. But I will say, look, I faced struggles I never thought I was going to face. But here you are and you're an adult, and it's like, what do I do with this? Do I give up? Do I just close the chapter, or do I adapt and find other ways to get to the goal that I always wanted to get to?
Yeah.
So yeah, and most importantly, really celebrating every form of family, right? Biological, chosen, blended, or born of resilience. And I always share with my patients when we get to use a donor egg, and I said, look, I could tell you honestly, I have never had a patient who said to me, I wish I hadn't done it once they had their
Mm,
baby.
mm,
And that really resonates with a lot of people because I acknowledge it. No young girl dreams, oh, when I'm gonna have a kid, I'm gonna use a donor. It's not everyone's dream, right? But when you find yourself at that crossroad and you have to decide,
yeah.
and then you open your heart and your mind to other possibilities, you see a whole new world that you never thought was there.
Mm,
And it's amazing what joy and what incredible sense of gratitude and appreciation that all the patients who have gone through that route have always shared with me. And it's
mm,
not my gift. It's a gift that science, can give us. And that is where science is so important, right? So, but you're not going to get there the minute you come through the door. You're not going to just show up and expect, oh, the patient, this is what you need to do. You may be thinking that, but everyone has to go at their pace, and right. And the
yeah.
journey, just like my journey was not your typical journey to medical school. It's and the I had to go through whatever struggles I had to go through to get to where I am today.
Mm,
And they were struggles and they my own internal struggles, right? Like, why didn't I just get to it sooner? I got a whole list of reasons why I didn't get to it sooner. Um,
mm,
but that was my challenge, right?
yeah.
And everyone has different ones, and for some individual, it presents this way. And our goal is to be what that woman, what that older psychiatrist who's no longer with us, but was to me like my inspiration, right? Like a lot of patients will say, "You've inspired me," and that to me, if I've inspired you to do something that brought you good, then to me that's a gift, and
Mm,
I'm very grateful to, honored to be part of an individual in such an important part of their life. So,
mm.
and I share that with all my colleagues. I know we all do.
Yeah. I know you're friends with many of your clients, right? Staying in touch
Yes,
with
I
them.
am. Yes, I am. And some of my clients, are physicians themselves, and so we share many similar stories and many similar experiences. And as I'm sure you can imagine, as an OBGYN or as a doctor who's trained, you spend your 20s, studying. You spend your early 30s getting your career going. And then you're like,
Mhm.
okay, now it's time for me. We're very methodical. It's like, this is what I do, then I'm going to try and get pregnant. And then you're like, oh, shoot, this is not working. What do I do now? So I'm especially bonded to physicians who come now
Mhm.
trying to get pregnant because they haven't had time before, or
Mhm.
anyone who's had, been involved in their career, or people who have second marriages, or
Yeah.
individuals who simply didn't know that this was going to be a struggle. Again, because infertility is such a hush hush um, topic, as you well know. I
Yeah.
wish it wasn't, and I wish there was less shame around it, but it's the way it is,
Yeah. I
unfortunately.
know you recently went to ASRM, right? And were you presenting there?
No, I wasn't. A lot of my colleagues were, a lot of
Mm.
fellows presented research, but
Yeah.
of course, yeah. But yeah, as a center, we're very much involved in innovation and in advancing
Mhm.
science, and we've always believed that was key. And without science, there's nothing. So obviously we never want to, we never want to lose track of the importance of science, right? But
Hmm.
um science serves, the opportunity to give every patient the best possible chance to build a family they dream of, right? So without that, there's nothing. But it just the point is it can't stop there, right? I
Yeah.
always I always think of, it's almost like science is the initial opportunity that we have to get things started. The first chance we get, it kind of like it gives us the tools, right?
Hmm.
But empathy actually, gives us the direction that we wanna take on, and it's not something that we wanna ever lose track of.
That's
That's
really
really
key. I want you to repeat that again. Science gives us the tool, but empathy gives us the direction.
correct.
That's
Correct.
good.
And I'm trying to think about what do I mean by saying that.
No,
As I'm
I
saying it,
mean,
I'm like, what do I mean? Well, what I mean is sort of like science is only part of the story, right? It's
right. Hmm.
scaffolding, but the real work happens in the space between the data that we get from science and the dreams that the patients have.
Yeah.
And that's how we figure out how do we move forward with the science that we do have to get the patient from point A to point B.
Yes. As I always say, we need the science and the soul.
Yes, you're absolutely right. I think without
Yeah.
science, without soul is not a science that we want to be part of.
Mm.
Yeah.
And the importance of a lab. I know, RMA, you have a very good lab, and that's so key.
They,
And
they're that's where the magic happens, right? I always joke with my patients. I'll say, look, I can be there, throughout the cycle. I'll do the ultrasounds. I'll see you throughout. I'll make the medical decisions. But once you get to the retrieval, I can go on vacation. No one's going to care because that's where you need the embryologist, and that's
yeah.
where what they do, the magic that they make happen,
Hmm.
is we say it in Latin sine qua non, which means without that there's nothing there. So I
Yeah.
can't work alone. I can't go, I'll start my own practice down the street without a lab. I'm only half the equation. The other
Yeah.
half is the sanctity of the work
Yeah.
that is done in the embryology lab. And I always tell people in the business world, it's like, look, it's physicians and nurses, of course, all the staff, because there's nothing without a village. The physicians and
Hmm.
nurses. I
Yep.
always mention the nurses because I always joke with my nurses, without you guys, I'd be dead. So I always say nurses, but physician and nurses, the clinicians who
Hmm.
are managing the patients, and then the embryology lab. The
Yeah.
embryologists are they work behind the scenes, right? They
Yeah.
never meet the patients. They're not in the front line like we are, but they are what make everything happen. And without them,
Mm.
that we are not as amazing as I believe we
Mm.
are.
Yeah.
So
Shout out to all the
we owe them
embryologists.
everything.
Yes, we do. No, it's a co-creative process, and
It
each
is.
person has such an integral part of the team. I want to jump a little bit into your personal life. With you have four kiddos, and I heard you share that they constantly inspire you in the work that you do.
Yes.
They
I have
help
two
you
dogs.
understand. What's that?
As I have two dogs. They don't inspire
And
me,
two dogs.
but
Oh, I'm
but
sure they do.
yeah, but they what they do, I should say they don't inspire me. That's totally not fair. What I should They are the perfect example of what unconditional love is.
Oh, yeah.
Because whether you're depending, it doesn't matter what time you come home, it doesn't matter how old they are just always so excited to see you. Whereas if you have teenagers, the level of excitement sort of peters down from from when
Hmm.
they're like in they're less than
Hmm.
10 to from 11 to 17 or 18, it changes.
Yeah.
But they are, because I mean, joking aside, I'm sure anybody who's had teenagers will appreciate that joke. But in reality, it is what I think is my greatest accomplishment. And
Mm.
even though I feel proud of a lot of things in my life, I've been very, very blessed with many things in my life.
Hmm.
I think having them and having the joy of being a mother is what inspires me every day to understand my patients. when they come to me and they have a loss, I get it. I completely understand
Mm,
what they're experiencing. It's something familiar, and if it doesn't matter what time it happens, right? If it happens at the beginning of your pregnancy, or if it happens at 20 weeks, or if it happens right before delivery. Of course, some of it has repercussions that are more severe, but in your heart, when you lose a baby, you lose a potential, you lose a dream. The minute you're pregnant, the dream takes off.
mhm.
It's instantaneous. For women, it's there's no doubt in my mind that that is the case, because I know it happened to me. The minute I had a positive pregnancy test, I had already envisioned the baby, the name,
Yeah.
everything, and that was just from a positive urine pregnancy test. So I
Mm,
get it when patients
right.
say, how upset they are when people is like, "Come on, you were pregnant for 2 minutes."
Yeah.
And it's just such a insensitive comment
Yeah.
to
It is.
make. And I think not that you need to be a mother to understand it, but I think being a mother gives you a full perspective that men don't get to have. So even
Mhm.
though I should, to be fair to dads are also have an
Yeah.
incredible experience, but
Yeah.
the only part that they're missing, what I'm referring to, is the physiological piece. Like you get it
Right.
when you see that positive pregnancy test. It's a powerful thing. And you see those
Mhm.
numbers go up. It's a powerful thing.
Mhm.
Positive beta test or beta HCG is a lot more than people think. So
Yeah.
yeah, so that's in many ways, that's how they're always present in my life.
Mm. And I've heard you talk about you were a former athlete and having a mindset of, and I did an episode with a friend on an athlete mentality. Do you have any thoughts on how some of your background and your passions have fueled you, or either in your pursuit of motherhood, in your pursuit of becoming a doctor, or just in life and like life lessons of that athlete mentality? I'm curious.
Yeah, and my kids are probably sick of hearing me talk about things of the future. I always like to use analogies. I sometimes talk about our practice and our fertility experience as being on a soccer field, and the different roles that everybody plays, and the fact that we need to work together, and the fact that our
Mm-hmm.
goal, and that the patients can be the audience. Other time it's like, you start your marathon, and I'll explain to patients like why doesn't an embryo take? And it's like running a marathon. You do everything right, you prepare, but you don't know what's going to happen until the day of the race, right? So, and then you see what the embryo is going to do. If only going to see it on that day. But the use of analogies that have to do with sports to me is always present. But
Mm-hmm.
but the most powerful thing about and my family would probably consider me the least athletic of them all. But I will say it's about really learning how to manage defeat. No one is always successful. No one. Um, Everyone learns from, okay, so I lost this one. I didn't make the timing that I wanted, or I was
Mm-hmm.
injured, or I got held back. These are things that are the most important parts of somebody's life. Because without losses, without defeats, you don't build your character, you don't figure out what you're made of, and you don't build the strength that you need. Because whether it's the infertility journey or some other journey, everyone has to go through this. And building your character and defining how much strength and who you are in a time of defeat is the most important part of a
Yeah.
human experience. I don't think without pain, without disappointment, without defeat, we would really find out who we are as human beings. I mean,
Yeah.
success is great. Don't get me wrong. I love it when I can tell the patient, "Yay, you're pregnant." But I think as a patient, it is the greatest challenge. As a doctor, it is also a big challenge to know how to sit with a patient who just had a loss, or who just
Yeah.
was disappointed, or who just, had a negative pregnancy test. I remember being in medical school, and or actually even before medical school, when I was working at Sloan Kettering, the oncologist would come to us to help meeting with the family to tell them that their family, their loved family member was dying because they didn't want to sit in that room.
Mm.
Um, I remember writing this letter to the editors years ago with Dr. Kathy Foley, who was this amazing mentor at Sloan Kettering. She was a neurologist. She still is. And we wrote about how patients want to know the truth. How they don't want you to beat around the bush. They want to know what's going on. The family
Yeah.
want to know. And it's the same. It's because for us, it's hard to sit with having to give bad news.
Mm.
So sometimes patients will perceive as, oh, they just don't care. But sometimes it's just that it's difficult for doctors to sit with that. And so they try to avoid it. So the more we can really help clinicians to sit with patients in moment of
Yeah.
distress, and the more patients will be heard, and the more that empathy connection
Yeah.
can happen. I mean, at the end of the day, communication it really is the bridge between science and empathy. And every conversation, whether it's explaining ovarian reserve, embryo grading, or the next step after a failed transfer, it's always an opportunity to build trust. And building trust is what is essential for this to happen. Because at the end of the day, as I'm sure can agree, is patients rarely remember every medical term, but they always remember how they felt in the
Yeah.
moment when
Yeah.
you explained it,
Yes.
right? Whether it's good news or bad news, they always remember how I made them feel or something I said. Even when
Mm.
patients, I shared this with some of my colleagues a while back when a patient started to cry at their discharge. I thought they were just crying because they were emotional. And what they cried about was just remembering how they felt when I
Mm.
said to them, look, we're in this together. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Okay. And that is what everything that happened, and it was a lot of things that happened. That is the one thing she remembered, that key moment where she felt I connected to her, right? I gave her hope. So you're right. Hope is essential and not in a Pollyannish way,
Yeah.
but in a way that unless you believe you can do it, you're not, back to the athlete, you're not gonna succeed. Whether you
Yeah.
succeed or not is irrelevant. What's
Yeah.
what's what's relevant is whether or not you believe that you could succeed.
Mm. Well, Dr. Costantini, this is such a great conversation. So beautiful. And you're doing such important work. I'm really thankful that you reached out. I should thank your daughter, right, for giving you the nudge to get on a
Yes,
podcast.
yes, yes. She's like, get going.
But I will include how people can find you and connect with you in the show notes. But would you like to share any other ways people can reach out to you?
Um, it's not as difficult as one may think. Um, I suppose I could always leave my email if people wanted to reach out. If somebody wanted to schedule an appointment or with me or my colleagues, I think probably they can give you. I think there's
Yeah.
probably access to that information. I
Yeah.
can always
I'll
provide.
share the RMA website, but you're
Yeah,
in New
always share the
Jersey.
RMA
Hmm.
website, and I don't want to give the impression that it's just me. We have amazing physicians who
Yeah.
we share that passion and that desire to help. But
Hmm.
of course, I'm happy to share my email as well if that would help.
Oh, well, thank you. I really appreciate this conversation and so happy to be connected with you.
Yeah, same.
Helping a lot of people.
Yeah, and again, and let me reiterate how much we appreciate the work that you and people like you and all the
Thank
support
you.
that is there for our patients, how essential it's been, and how much of an impact and a difference is made. Because this wasn't available when we started.
Yeah.
When
Thank
I
you.
started in 2010, there was no such thing as a coach. There was
Yeah.
no such
Yeah.
thing as, or at least that most of us were
There
aware.
wasn't.
Maybe there was, and I just didn't know
Yeah.
about it. But we didn't have enough of an appreciation of all the mental health
Mm.
resources that were available, groups and all things. A lot of the information that's now online is
Yeah.
phenomenal. I think the more we do, the better it is. The more awareness
Yeah.
there is, the more we can have people feel comfortable and lose some of that stigma that unfortunately is
Hmm.
still there. Who knows? Maybe one day
Thank
we'll
you.
be successful at that. So appreciate that as well.
Thank you. That means so much. And I was just thinking, with all the AI technology happening, you can never lose that human connection. We're always going to need this human face to face, walk
Can I?
alongside you
Yes,
connection. Like a
yes.
robot cannot replace this.
Yes, listen, artificial intelligence, personalized medicine, advanced lab, all this stuff will continue
Yeah.
to evolve. There's no doubt about it. But the human element, empathy, trust,
Yeah. Yeah.
understanding will remain the heart of what makes our work meaningful. Because,
Yes.
at the end, fertility medicine isn't just about creating life, it's about restoring hope. And
Oh,
AI can't do that.
no.
So
Oh
we
my
need
gosh.
to,
That's a whole nother conversation we could have.
yeah, yeah. So we need
But
to,
back, it ties back to empathy. Robots,
yeah.
I don't think they can be empathetic quite yet. I don't
Right,
know.
right. And sometimes they sound empathetic. I actually heard them.
Ah,
They sound really empathetic, but at the end of the day, it's just like when you're online and you keep saying, "I want to talk to an operator. I want to talk to a
yes.
person."
Yes.
I don't want to keep hearing the AI comment. And again, I'm totally in favor. I want to support that, and I think that needs to it will help tremendously,
Mhm.
but it's just not at the expense of using the human element.
Yeah. Well,
So,
so grateful for you. You're doing incredible work and yeah, thank you again for this.
well, no, thank you. It's been fun to chat with you. I appreciate the conversation, and thanks for
Of course.
giving me this chance to talk.
Thank you.
All right.